the country. And that's the angle. And it's not just the federal judges. The latest example in that horrifying case out of New Mexico involving a remote compound, child abuse, and radical Islamic extremists. Astoundingly, Judge Sarah Backus is granting bail to 5 adults in the abuse case, claiming prosecutors failed to identify any specific threats to the community. Now, that's despite prosecutors alleging that these guys were training kids to use all those firearms to carry out terror attacks at schools. So how is this possible? Joining us now with reaction is attorney Harmeet Dillon, who works on these types of cases, along with constitutional law attorney Troy Waldron. Harmeet, let's start with you, because I think the regular folks watching this cannot believe their ears, where we had the authorities who visited this compound said that, you know, this guy, the first police officer on the scene, said he had never seen conditions like this. It was so sad, so depraved. Kids were starving, and of course, a body of a child found on that compound as well. So now 4 of the defendants have $20,000 bail set. What?
It isn't even bail, Laura, so it's worse than that. It's a $20,000 signature bond, meaning that if they don't show up for their court dates, they have to promise to pay the government $20,000, which is obviously ridiculous. If you have somebody who's potentially going to be put away for life on terror charges, a $20,000 promise to pay is not a deterrent for them to flee or to commit more crimes. This is as a result of New Mexico's very liberal bail law. They did bail reform in 2016, and the Chief Justice of one of the justices of the Supreme Court added some additional conditions to that, so that at the very early stage, the prosecutors have to show by quote unquote clear and convincing evidence that the person is either a flight risk or a danger to the community. Now, let's review the evidence here. Here, as you said, you have 11 children who are starving and being trained, according to prosecutors, to commit crimes, including terror crimes, rapid recharging of guns, and are being abused. You have a dead child. You have numerous weapons. You have hundreds of feet of tunnel under this compound, and you have somebody who's being held on a kidnapping charge in another jurisdiction. So if this isn't clear and convincing evidence that A, there's a flight risk, and B, there's a potential danger to the community, I don't know what is. And the judge went out of her way to say to the prosecutors that, oh, well, this seems like an unconventional lifestyle that you're describing here,
what?
But I don't really see the danger to the community. I mean, it's crazy. Anybody watching this knows that that's nonsense. Unconventional lifestyle, quote unquote, from the judge on Monday. That's right.
Troy, this is what the judge actually said when they were discussing this bail issue in court. Let's watch.
The state alleges that there was a big plan afoot that the state hasn't shown, to my satisfaction, by clear and convincing evidence, what in fact that plan was. There's no reason for me to believe that these defendants have in the past shown themselves to be a danger to the community.
So, Troy, again, to non-legal people out there, just regular people watching this tonight, they see a situation where you had 5 adults, 11 children kept in depraved, abusive conditions, 1 dead child, and they just have to sign on a dotted line that they'll pay the $20,000 when they come back for their hearing. How is this good for a community?
Laura, the judge here is just following the law. The 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which we don't get to talk a lot about outside of law school classrooms, is very clear. The government can't impose excessive bail. And excessive bail is anything more than what's required to make sure that somebody comes to court. So the court here imposed not only the $20,000, but electronic monitoring. They have to check in with their lawyers. And there are many other less restrictive means.
One time a week. We got a dead child,
That's true.
Starving children. There would have been more dead children, undoubtedly, had authorities not arrived on the scene. And they don't have to fork over
Laura,
the $20K each, Troy, correct? Harmeet's right here. Correct?
That's right.
Laura,
that's right. It's a signature bond. It's only $20K if they don't show up.
Do the defendants have to pay the money?
Not right now.
Hello?
No,
Thank
they
you.
absolutely do
Thank you.
not.
It's freaking outrage.
And,
I'm sorry, but it's an outrage that they don't have to pay the money. Why are we going to trust four adults, 5 adults total, but 4 adults who treated children this way with showing up for their hearing when they had tunnels under their compound? This judge is way off the rails. I know it's her call, but she's way off the rails on this one.
One of them has been taken into ICE custody. The other is being held on an out-of-state warrant. All the kids, thankfully, are in protective custody, and all the weapons have been taken. So there's no indication that they're a flight risk or that they're going to flee the jurisdiction. The government wasn't able to show in the court hearing that they're not going to show up for their court date.
Troy's right that the prosecutor, according to the judge, Harmeet, said, you didn't give me the clear and convincing evidence that these people at present pose a danger to the community. And the constitutional amendment in New Mexico that, is part of the state constitution now said, look, that's an option. You have to show clear and convincing evidence. And apparently the prosecutors, according to the judge, can do that. Now, this judge has a bit of a reputation. There was another case where people were up in arms because of a low bail set involving another individual. We'll show his picture right here. Another individual, and it was another case of abuse, and the bail seemed low, $10,000, and people were not happy about that. But Harmeet, Troy's point is, took the guns, took the, I guess, the ammunition. Kids are safe. I guess what's the big deal?
Yeah, what's the big deal, Laura? I mean, it's res ipsa loquitur. They taught that in a law school meeting, that the thing speaks for itself. You got a dead kid. You got terrorist training camp going on here. There's no threat to the public. I mean, that is ridiculous. And, the prosecution included in their evidence to the judge a handwritten terrorist manifesto about what they wanted to do. And, of course, the prosecutor wasn't able to bring these children into court to testify themselves because, A, they're small children, B, they're, probably in a hospital recovering from this abuse. So, this judge went on to make some gratuitous comments. She accused the prosecutors of playing on religious prejudice because the prosecutors mentioned in the court that these are Muslim rituals that were being done that tortured these children, leading to the death of one of them. And the judge said, oh, well, I can't take their religion into consideration. Nobody was asking her to take their religion into consideration. It's the specific acts of these specific criminals. Yes. And on top of that, yes, thank God one of these people is in ICE custody and one of them is going to be handed over to Georgia on child kidnapping charges. But if it were up to this judge, she granted very minimal conditions to all 5 of them. And that is an outrage, and that is a repeat pattern by this judge, a Democrat who came from San Francisco, my hometown, unfortunately. That's where she learned these practices.
Susanna Martinez put a statement on her Facebook page. She said this is the result of liberal pretrial release rules put in place by the New Mexico Supreme Court. Judicial activism at its worst, and something I've spoken about. It's time to put a stop to the revolving door in our justice system and keep dangerous criminals in jail where they belong. Troy, do you think because of the public outrage, this judge, could she reverse her decision? I'm not saying you want her to, but could she?
Well, I think a judge, if there's any change in circumstances or if she was challenged on appeal, certainly could. And look, I'm not saying that what these people are accused of is anything less than horrific. And if they're found guilty, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But the issue here is whether they should be given reasonable bail. And when people are given high bail, that tends to disproportionately hurt lower income people. And wealthy people shouldn't be allowed to just get out on bail because they have more money.
Yeah, well, we want to have a longer conversation.
They're being charged no bail, Troy. They're being charged 0 bail. They are being charged a signature, and that is the outrage. And by the way, Laura, this trend is going on all over the country.
Monitored.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, all over the country, this is happening now.
Yeah, it is happening all over the country. But let me tell you, if a lot of the illegal immigrants have the bracelets on, the electronic monitoring bracelets, ankle bracelets, they cut them off. It's not like that's the be-all and end-all.
Of course they do.
Every week, so what? I mean, this is no big deal. But we want to have a longer conversation on another night with you guys about just the bail reform issue. It's something a lot of people aren't really aware of. It's fascinating, and you're both great advocates. So thank you so much for joining us.